Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to Simplilearn. We are honored to have you join us today for the need of cybersecurity in present era with your host, Pierre. My name is Richard, and after this intro, I will be mostly in the background helping Andrew so that everything goes smooth. The need of cybersecurity in the present era. Certainly our concepts of the need for cybersecurity have changed over the last 2 decades. I remember booting up a computer back in the 1990s and didn't even ask for a password. Nowadays, well, we are truly in a different era, and I look forward to Andrew's talk today. If you are not familiar with Andrew, Andrew is a consultant, project and program management, trainer with specialties in education, IT service management, ITMSM, COBIT, infrastructure management and design with over a decade and a half of experience to back it. He carries certificates in ITIL under V2, V3, Master Service, MA, Master's Lifecycle, in PMP, Unix, you name it. He is pretty much across the board certified and knows definitely has a broad spectrum. For those who are new to this form of webinar, I want to introduce you to your dashboard or control panel. If everyone could locate the control panel, then locate the question module. Let's go ahead and just type in, say hi to Andrew, let him know you're here and he's excited to be here. This also lets us know that you're able to hear us. Just double checking our own thing. I got Harsh. Nilesh, hello. Great to have you here. Excellent. Excited to have you. Oh, Adam, howdy. Oh, goodness, we had a lot of people come in. Excellent. We're glad to have all of you here today. This question module is your best friend. Go ahead if you have any questions on your own personal career. Somebody else probably does too, or on the actual whatever he's covering and need him to repeat something. Go ahead and type that in there. Sometimes we're able to address that while he's doing the session, but we do have a 15-minute period at the end where we try to get to as many of the questions as we can in a QA session. Let's see, if you hear something awesome and brilliant, interesting, or insightful, and you want to share it on your social channels, whatever your social channels are, Facebook, LinkedIn, tweet, you can use the hashtag SLWebinars. That way people can find it and you will make them wish they were here. You didn't come here to listen to me. I am proud to introduce Andrew Lapierre, who will be your host. Go ahead and sit back, relax, have a cup of coffee or tea, or maybe it's evening where you're at and you're going to sit back and enjoy a glass of wine. It's an honor for me to hand this over to Andrew. Thank you and happy learning. Andrew, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning.
Excellent.
All right, guys, welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about cybersecurity in the present era and how much it differs from the bad old days or the good old days, depending on how you view it. My name is Lapierre, and let's go forward here. What are we going to talk about? The modern business drivers, things that make businesses invest in cybersecurity. What is cybersecurity? We have a little overview. Why the traditional stuff isn't good enough anymore. And we'll have a look at the traditional stuff, like firewalls and stuff like that. Just passwords, and you know what I mean. We'll have an overview of the benefits of cybersecurity and also why large organizations that are heavily investing in cybersecurity prefer certified professionals. The good news also is that SMEs these days are also looking for certified cybersecurity professionals. And we'll have an overview also of the number of trainings, the different types of trainings that are available to you. And then at the end of the session, we'll have a little Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Type them up in the question thing or the chat window. Our gracious host here, Richard, will collect all that data and we'll talk about those questions in the Q&A. I cannot see them here, from my screen, but Richard can. So feel free to jump in anytime and ask questions. All right. Cybersecurity, fascinating topic. And of course, it is far, far more than good passwords. And we all know what good passwords are, by the way. Good passwords is not your birthday, and or the name of your wife, or the name of your dog, or whatever. And those are not good passwords. But even if you have good passwords, and even if you have incident management in place, and you can do some firefighting, of course, that is not good enough in terms of cybersecurity. And we'll have a look at why. What is the reality today? What are the business drivers? Well, there are many. For one, organizations are, of course, increasingly dependent on IT. You'll be surprised how many organizations simply cannot survive if IT would fail across the board. To give you an example, one of the biggest banks in the world, JP Morgan Chase, enormous bank, global bank, they have trillions of dollars in assets across the world. If their IT would fail across the board, how long do you think they will survive? 17 minutes. So although they are one of the richest banks in the world, they have trillions in assets, they would be bankrupt in 17 minutes. Why? Because they would lose hundreds of millions of dollars by the second if their IT fails across the board. And they simply cannot afford that. And that's why they invest in all kinds of frameworks like ITIL, for example, service management, but also in cybersecurity, because cybersecurity, of course, must be at the basis of all these business processes and IT processes. Many organizations, airlines, insurance companies, governments are highly dependent on IT. So that's one reason. Higher visibility of failure. If you are an airline, you cannot tell your customers, yeah, come back next week, the server is down because we have a hacker. The customer will think, what kind of airline is this? Simply not acceptable. Increased complexity of the IT infrastructure. That's another driver. Complexity, of course, is the great friend of Mr. Murphy. We all know Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy never sleeps. Mr. Murphy is lurking in the catacombs and crevices of your infrastructure, waiting for opportunities to sabotage things. And Mr. Murphy, of course, works closely together with hackers and all kinds of cyber attackers. So that's not a good thing. The more complex your infrastructure, the more opportunities there will be for Mr. Murphy to sabotage things, and the more opportunities for hackers to attack and be successful in several ways. You will be surprised in what ways hackers can penetrate security, conventional security. Now, security and cybersecurity is not a simple topic, because in today's complex world, threats and vulnerabilities can come from all kinds of things. Rogue nations, hackers, terrorism, basically it is a form of terrorism. Industrial espionage is another one. Lack of security management throughout the organization that makes you, of course, physical security management. In other words, not even personal security and things like that. People can just walk into the building and then you're wide open to all kinds of threats and vulnerabilities. But also staff, employees, disgruntled employees, even customers. maybe intentionally or not intentionally, pose a security risk. Suppliers, don't forget that. A supplier that has their IT not very secure, but we are reliant on their services, they may also pose a security risk. Foreign governments, secret service activities, Echelon, there are all kinds of monitoring for terrorism purposes, monitoring services that also are doing penetration testing on all kinds of systems. Recent scandals are well known about that. Man-made disasters, natural disasters, there are all kinds of factors that may open us up to all kinds of vulnerabilities and threats. So what is cybersecurity? What does it mean? Well, basically it's nothing else than the ability, capacity, as well as strategical assets that needs to be in place and resources that are required to proactively identify, detect, protect, and respond to, as well as recover from, all kinds of vulnerabilities and threats. And that's a mouthful. That's a lot. Proper cybersecurity implementations means that all your systems are constantly monitored. Proper cybersecurity will generate mountains and mountains of data that needs to be processed in real time. And that's one of the biggest challenges of good security. Traditional security methods won't help in the sense that, for example, to give you one, just to name one example, a traditional firewall will protect on a port basis. They will block off a number of ports, and a number of ports are open, and then the hacker will use a tool that tries to skip ports constantly. And if your tools are not able to see that unusual UDP or IP traffic and not detecting it, then they already have a way to laterally move throughout your infrastructure, find vulnerabilities, find a port, an unused or unusual port, and start exploiting it. That's cybersecurity. It is far more. It is the integration of all these classic tools and the modern tools and techniques to make it watertight, basically. And all that in real time. And all that across several platforms. And one of the most important criteria for a cybersecurity tool suite is, of course, integration. Integration with your legacy systems, integration with your legacy firewalls, etc., etc. Using correlation engines that will find anomalies and strange behavior, etc., etc., throughout the infrastructure, across technology, across services, etc., etc., end-to-end monitoring. Of course, it must be completely business-driven from strategy. Why? Because, of course, the business has to have a vision about the right level of security. Who are we? Who are we IT guys to decide what is good enough and what is not good enough? The business will, of course, dictate what needs to be done, up to what level, and how much financial impact. You can throw as much money as you want at cybersecurity. It's easy to spend a complete fortune on it. But if you neglect other things, then of course Murphy will attack in a different way. And there is even a term for it. It's called locks on grass huts. If you build yourself a grass hut, built out of mud and grass and twigs and what have you, and you put an enormous vault door in front of that, armored steel, 10 inches thick, looks very impressive. But then of course the hacker will bypass the front door and enter through the wall, which is made out of grass. In other words, security must be all-encompassing. Failing in one area means failing overall. So, business-driven, the business will determine how much money we can spend on security, how much we can spend on availability management, uptime, in other words, techniques and processes used in service management frameworks like ITIL or TOGAF or MOF, availability management, uptime, continuity management for disasters when availability fails. Security management must underpin all these processes, including incident management, which of course has to deal with events, including security events. Yeah, so a good implementation, ITIL implementation, or at least a service management implementation, is at the basis of all this stuff. ISO 20000 would be a good metric, a good standard to go for as a business. You can be certified for ISO 20000, which implies that you have an effective and efficient service management implementation, for example, ITIL or something else, and ISO 27001, which is proper security management. It's not a cookbook, but the code of conduct for security management. That would be a good start, let me put it that way. Is that watertight? No. That is not cybersecurity, but it is a good basis for security management and overall security strategy driven from the business, from business strategy. So it is not something like we do security. No, we're talking here about planning and architecture on how we will be secure. We're talking here about a multi-layered, holistic approach integrating legacy and modern tool suites into a cybersecurity tool. And it needs, like I said, it needs to underpin, it needs to enable both IT and business processes, like service management, for example. That is cybersecurity. Maintaining it. Well, one of the biggest challenges in maintaining security is the fact that the landscape is constantly changing. The only constant is change. Just like Einstein observed about the universe, the only constant in the universe is change. Well, the same thing is cybersecurity. And within cybersecurity, within the world of hackers and attackers, APTs, advanced persistent threats, the biggest challenge is the constantly updating techniques and ways to penetrate security systems, especially the legacy stuff. Yeah, so the biggest challenge is the right architecture, designing the right architecture, auditing the right architecture, maintaining it and updating it, making a solution, designing a solution that is able to dynamically adapt to constant change. For that, of course, we need the 4 P's. We need people, obviously. Without people, you cannot do this. Of course, it must be highly automated, but you need dedicated staff. You need, and that's also part of management commitment, something we will talk about later. You need IT staff that is properly trained and has the right tools, and etc., etc. But you also need processes and products, technology, products, and partners, third-party vendors perhaps, that will deliver certain services and or products, etc., etc. These things are absolutely crucial for cybersecurity. And of course, just like service management processes, security is completely based on the 11th Commandment. If you cannot measure, you cannot manage. We all know the 10 Commandments, right? Thou shalt not be naughty and stuff like that. The 11th Commandment, especially for managers, thou shalt measure. You must be able to measure this stuff. And with measure, of course, I'm talking about agents, I'm talking about sensors throughout your infrastructure, correlation engines interpreting things that are happening in the infrastructure, looking at events, looking at incidents, looking at signals, etc., and taking appropriate action, pre-programmed as per business rules, perhaps, and or escalating it automatically to incident management where necessary, and security management, access management, availability management, etc., etc. So the 11th commandment here is thou shalt measure. You must be able to measure. If you cannot measure, you cannot manage. It is that simple. Same goes for quality management, the same goes for service management, etc., etc. Use your metrics, because you will have plenty of metrics, I can assure you. Some organizations generate gigabytes, if not petabytes, of data, security data, that needs to be processed. So, thou shalt measure and thou shalt use thy correlation engines. If you don't use these tools, you cannot do security management, cybersecurity properly, because it's far too much. That's why you need these modern tools, and the classic tools are not equipped to do that. We'll talk about that in a minute. A few stupid remarks here. Assumptions. Hackers will seek the path of least resistance. Well, I can assure you that is absolutely not true. That used to be true. But these days, that is absolutely not true anymore. Proven reality shows us that hackers may gain entry to enterprise systems through heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. How about that one? I'm sure you didn't think of that. That happened a couple of years ago to a very large bank, where hackers got access to the building HVAC system, which was connected to the internet, and through that system they got access to the air conditioner, through the air conditioner onto the network. And the networks were not properly segmented, so once they penetrated the firewall, they had access to all operational systems. Cost them millions. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was something like 80,000 or 800,000 credit card data was stolen. That's not very nice if you are a bank. Another stupid assumption here. We have good passwords in our company. Sorry guys, passwords do not security make anymore. That used to be the case, assuming you have good passwords. But that is not good enough anymore. It's too easy. When a hacker encounters a secured network, it is likely they will move on to the next victim. No, that's a wrong assumption. Not true. They are highly motivated professionals these days, well funded, well versed in IT, of course, sometimes even funded by nation states, and very persistent and professional in their efforts to break through the defenses. And I can assure you, they are very, very good. In fact, some of them are so good that they are directly hired by security departments of certain organizations and paid very, very well. Six-figure salaries. just to keep them for the company so they won't go rogue and hacking. Another assumption, it won't happen to us. That is, of course, inspired by Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, who thinks that if you stick your head in the sand, then nobody will see you. Therefore, it will not happen to us. Of course, that is nonsense. That doesn't work. It won't happen to us. I think we're just looking at hacking. I think it was within 9 years you have something like 75% probability of being hacked. And that was a couple of years ago, so it's only getting worse. Now, how does a cyber attack look like? What is the life cycle of a cyber attack? It starts with reconnaissance, planning, careful planning by the hacker or their organizations, and that can happen in all kinds of ways. And they will start doing research and select targets using phishing techniques, perhaps, or extracting public information from the web, or perhaps your LinkedIn profile, corporate websites. There are all kinds of sources they can use these days to extract information about a potential mark, a potential target. And of course, they have specific tools that will scan for network vulnerabilities, like unused or unattended ports and stuff like that, services, applications, etc. Then the next phase is weaponization and delivery of a tool. So once they have found some vulnerability, they start looking at the methods they will use and try to embed an intruder code, for example, in seemingly innocent files, innocuous files, like a PDF or a Word document, often disguised as internal documents, often disguised as emails from your boss, for example. I have seen examples of that, where people later said, I never sent that email. That was from a high-ranking official, and it looked completely legitimate. Another way is that they will try to catch the attention of somebody with something they know that person can be interested in, and make them respond. That can be with all kinds of emails, websites, links, prizes that can be won, and etc., etc. The next phase is exploitation. As soon as they have access, they will create persistence, activate an attack code on the host or the systems they have access to, and ultimately take control of the target machine. And that can be through an air conditioner. You'll be surprised, and I already mentioned it, how they often are able to penetrate. The next phase is installation. They will elevate privileges, install rootkits, establish persistence within the system, so they can easily access without being detected. Maybe by hopping ports, etc. There are all kinds of tricks they can use, so your normal firewall protection, etc. Won't even notice it. Then command and control. Create a back channel through the internet, or even backup systems, to a specific server, so they can communicate and pass data back and forth. And then finally, actions on the mark, on the objective. And it can offer all kinds of motivations. In many, not always, well, in many cases, it's not even for profit. That can be industrial espionage, all kinds of data they are after. They will exfiltrate that data, may sell that data even, etc., etc. But also to destruct critical infrastructure. One of the recent hacker attacks blew a transformer substation in the US. And they were able to penetrate the network of that energy provider and literally destruct critical infrastructure. It is also used for extortion by creating fear, for example, and all kinds of nasty stuff. Many of these hackers are really professional criminals, and they should be treated as such. So, in short, in today's landscape, in today's business environment, traditional stuff like firewalls, IPSs, and the traditional security solutions are ineffective at protecting endpoints and cloud environments. One of the remarks I heard a couple of days ago was from a customer who said, "Oh, we are secure because we store our data in the cloud." Oh, really? What is the cloud? The cloud is the internet. We all know that, right? So storing your stuff on somebody else's hardware, because that's what you're talking about, makes it more secure by definition? Sorry, that is not exactly true. Huh? So cloud storage in itself is nice in terms of redundancy. You add backup on backup on backup. You have nice spread perhaps and several points of access to the internet. So there is some additional availability here, and so, but in terms of security, that does not guarantee integrity of your data. You're storing it on somebody else's stuff, and if that's not well protected, then you're still in trouble. So what to do? Well, a lot to do. Funding, of course. We need a sack of money, a big sack of money, I can assure you. This is not cheap. You have to invest in this stuff. What does that mean? You need security management, processes set up. You need availability management. You need continuity, access management, incident management. You need some kind of enterprise class framework to manage all this. To not only to enable your business processes, but also to secure them. I already mentioned ISO 27001, which is the code of conduct for security management, proper security management. CRAM, the well-known risk assessment methodology, used within security management in several service management frameworks like ITIL, like COBIT. Strategies and policies from the business must be in place. This is business driven, and of course you need a champion in management who will support this stuff. Because this is not something you decide on a rainy Monday morning, let's do cybersecurity. Because they will fire you so quick, your head will spin. This is incredibly expensive, and you really have to invest in it. The benefits are long term and not always visible, not directly visible. Another reason why you need management commitment. Audits, internal audits, but also audits by external parties like your accountancy firm, penetration testing by third parties, etc., etc. Awareness of security and why we do security throughout the company. Educate your customers, educate their customers, internal and external, need to be aware. IT staff needs to be trained, IT staff needs to be certified. Management needs to understand this stuff, because if you start doing proper security management, working together with availability, continuity, access management, application management, etc., etc., you often have to do stuff that is counterintuitive of what the customer thinks they want. They don't always know what they want. And what management understands that needs to be done. If management doesn't understand this stuff, it won't work. You will have all kinds of frictions and misery implementing it. It won't work. Suppliers, tools. What do I mean with tools? The security platform and technology, of course. And that platform and technology, together with your legacy tools that need to be integrated with the security platform, must be able to enforce allowed interactions, only allowed interactions between data and users. What does that mean? It means segmenting your networks. It means multiple stages of protection. Correlation engines, workflow servers that are able to identify threats on all applications, ports, users, and devices all the time, constantly, in real time, and generate security data. Yeah, so protection of data must happen in multiple stages throughout the attack lifecycle. Every phase in that lifecycle is detectable. Outsmart advanced threats. The tool must be able to find unusual behavior, unusual things, strange UDP packets, stuff like that, the protocol changes, etc. Hackers sometimes try to create data storms, saturating a part of the network that goes down, and they can use that, the downtime, to penetrate. New intelligence that has been gathered must be translated into security policies real time, so we have to be up to date with intelligence and protections against the latest attacks. Quick and accurate mitigation, incident management in place, problem management in place, change management in place, so you can quickly react on things in a controlled way. Coordinate action comprehensively across individual security technologies. Keep the business running, of course. We cannot shut down the entire company just because we have some suspicious activity at the firewall. It must be easy to use. Easy to use in the sense that it all aggregates this data to one central point, so it will be easier to find patterns, see anomalies, etc., etc. And of course the tools should do the bulk of the work, because we're talking about every platform, every service throughout the company. Mountains of data. Don't think that if you hire one guy who's monitoring everything at the same time, it's completely impossible. You will be ready for the asylum within 2 days, because that's impossible. It's literally impossible. You need dedicated hardware for this, dedicated software, dedicated people. So what are we talking about? Operational and strategical analytics, metrics, data. I already mentioned it, mountains and mountains of data. And the benefits here are that you have operational analytics at the same time as strategical analytics. Operational gives you tools that explore specific networks and events, monitor things real time, detect emerging threats automatically, and strategic analytics, so you can assess over time, do analyses, trend analyses, for example, and make policy and spending decisions as required. All the data constantly collected, aggregated, interpreted, and presented and reported upon, and they're both crucial. If all that is in place, then we have the strategic ability in the organization to get the right people, the right processes, procedures and technology in place to protect networks and data from attacks. And therefore we can follow the concept of CIA, not the Central Intelligence Agency, but confidentiality, integrity and availability. Confidentiality means, of course, that data that must remain confidential, is only accessible to those that are authorized to see it. So it remains confidential. Integrity means trustworthiness of your data, very important. And availability, which means uptime, of course. Availability of systems, availability of services and data. Now, what education and certifications are available in the field? Well, that's quite a bit these days because it's a complex topic. ISO, from an ISO point of view, ISO 27001, the auditor and implementer certification from the British Standards Institute would be good. Certified ethical hacker would be a good basis for many. And of course, the crown jewel of security would be the Certified Information Systems Security Professional, the CISSP ITAK certification. Another one from a management point of view, the Information Security Manager, CISM certification. Auditor, if you want to audit, suppose that you work for an accountancy firm, or you want to do penetration testing services and stuff like that, you can be an information systems auditor. You can go for that certification, CISA. If you are highly technical and you're working for problem management or support groups or incident management or perhaps service level management in terms of service management frameworks, then you can go for CompTIA Security Plus certification, which is on a technical level. So know your protocols, how to program routers, stuff like that. And if you are a manager that manages technical people, then the CRISC certification would be interesting for you. Certified in Risk and Information Systems Control. Those are a number of examples of available trainings and certifications from a viewpoint of several roles. But a good basis would be the Certified Ethical Hacker, because then you are familiar with the tools they use, but you're an ethical hacker, of course. You're the good guy. And if you want the full blast, then I would say the CISSP is a very good, very highly regarded certification for security professionals. That implies a lot. Auditor can also be interesting if you are a consultant and you provide those services to customers. Yeah, just a couple of examples here. Why are certified professionals preferred? Well, the constantly changing landscape is one of the reasons, of course. You have to be on par with the latest and the greatest and the latest. And for many businesses, when hiring security staff, certain qualifications are already compulsory for those positions. Interesting boost for security professionals, actually, to be certified, of course. Already, more than heading towards 6 million jobs in information security already. This is official data from Gartner and IDC and institutes like that. And there's already a shortage of 1.5 million of those people, and they are high-paying jobs. I'm talking 6 figures. $150,000 a year is completely normal for a highly certified security guys. Not a bad salary. A few critical success factors that really need to be in place, not just for security management, cybersecurity, but also for management frameworks, service management frameworks like COBIT, like ITIL, Lean Six Sigma, etc. Excellent communications, absolutely necessary. Proper project management. Why? Because implementing this stuff is already a project. And I can assure you, once these processes are running, you will still need proper project management to run these processes and instigate improvement processes and projects. Management commitment, I don't have to explain that, I hope. I mean, if management is not interested in security, then don't even start thinking of this stuff, because it will be the best way to get fired. It's incredibly expensive. The benefits, the real-time benefits, are long-term and not very visible. In other words, when nothing goes wrong, people think, why are we doing this? Costing all this money. Not very good. Dangers and pitfalls when implementing this stuff. Locks on grass huts, I already mentioned it. Security must be all-encompassing. Failing in one area is failing overall. The hacker will exploit every weak spot, and the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So locks on grass huts are pointless. It must be everywhere. No security by design, what does that mean? Well, I must confess I'm guilty. You would be surprised how many applications out of the 60s and the 70s written in COBOL are still being used. And of course they are wide open. They are legacy applications, perhaps even on legacy platforms. They don't know security. You have to devise some kind of security layer around that stuff. Or you have to rewrite the application, of course, but many companies won't do that because these COBOL applications work very well. But you can think of a single sign-on server or something around all that legacy stuff and keep it on separate network segments and stuff like that. There's no security by declaration, only by dedication. You can say, oh, we are very secure because we have a guard at the door and we have passwords. Forget it. And entropy rules. What does that mean? It means entropy, just like in nature, hot always cools down to cold, high water flows to a low point, etc. Entropy, the diminishing of things, like entropy of the universe, and one day all the stars in the universe will be burnt out. What does that have to do with cybersecurity? Nothing, but it gives you an idea. Entropy rules, the moment you lean back in your chair and you don't do anything about it anymore, because you don't, in this company we've got it made. Yeah, that's the moment Mr. Murphy will strike, of course. You have to keep doing security. You have to keep testing it. You have to keep evaluating it, auditing, improving. The operational phase is one of the most expensive phases in security management, because you have to keep doing that. And after every change in the business processes or change in your IT environment or services, it has to be updated. You have to have processes like change management in place. If people start changing things, without us knowing about it, us IT guys knowing about it, security goes out of the window, of course. Security management can dictate things to other processes. Frameworks that you can use here, ISO 20000 for service management, for example, and IT governance, IT completely controlled from a business perspective. COBIT is another, TOGAF is another one, the Open Group Architecture Framework, CMMI, the Capability Maturity Modeling, MOF, Microsoft Operational Framework, if you do software development or stuff like that. And those would be good frameworks in which we can integrate and implement security management. Cybersecurity, ISO 27000, the official security management standard, code of conduct. CRAM, the CCTA risk assessment management methodology. All of that can be used, and of course we need project management. What project management? I don't know. Anything that works for you, like GSM or Prince or PMP, from PMI, PMB, okay, etc., etc. All right, guys, that was my preaching so far.
Excellent, excellent. Boy, that brought me up to speed in a lot of stuff that I haven't covered in many years, since I haven't been doing much in the way of cybersecurity other than listening to our leads tell me what not to do. We have a couple questions coming in here, or actually a number of questions coming in here. While we're doing the questions and going through them, I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen here for about 5 minutes and launch our polling. So we'll do the question. We'll start the question and answer with the polling going, and then at some point I'll turn that off in case you have something you need to go back to your screen for. We'll go and launch that. And then quick note, I have a hi Andrew from, this is Srini. I hope I said the name correctly. Srini. So there's a special hello from there, probably somebody from one of your classes. We have a lot of questions. I think you might have answered a number of them throughout the lecture, but let's see if we can just highlight them since they're very centered on career and career growth. We have one from Tu. Let's see, background in an engineer. What if you have a background in engineer having this cybersecurity domain? So what would be their main focus as an engineer coming in? I'm guessing a software engineer. It could be an admin engineer, but probably a software engineer.
Software engineer. I would say start with generic cybersecurity course and ethical hacking, perhaps, and or ethical hacking, and then follow up perhaps with the CompTIA for the more technical stuff.
Okay, and then we have coming from Abhinav. I hope I'm saying that again. I'm learning how to say the different names, so I apologize if I mess any of them up. Oops, let me go back on up there. Growth related to, I guess he's looking at where is cybersecurity growing the fastest right now? What is the biggest area of cybersecurity that is coming into the market, or the biggest demand?
SMEs. Sorry, SMEs, small and medium enterprises. The big guys already do all this stuff. They spent a bloody fortune on it. And now the SMEs are realizing that that's really necessary. I work with actually a lot of startups here in my area, and so they're smaller businesses, and I see that a lot coming in as they don't even know where to begin. Yeah, I can imagine for a little guy, let's say a company with 5 employees or something, this is really difficult and too expensive most likely. But you can train 1 or 2 of your employees in using some tools at least.
I hope. Well, thankfully we have some good people in our community that help with that. But yes, it's definitely a growing issue here. Let's see. You referenced APT. Can you elaborate a little bit more, or describe what the APT was?
Advanced Persistent Threat.
Okay. I guess they're asking if you had like a description of it.
I don't know. An advanced persistent threat can be anything. It can be one particular person, of course, using a certain technique or a new tool. One of the at the moment, the DDoS attack is quite prolific. That would be an APT.
Excellent. Oh, yeah, we were just talking about, you just mentioned 5 employees. Adam says he has 5 employees in their company. So let's see, what is the malware analyst? Are you familiar with that?
As a person or as a tool?
as a tool, I'm guessing. I'm not quite sure on that.
Okay, there are a couple of tool suites that will constantly analyze software and transport it into a certain area in the cloud, for example, where it will be executed in a virtual environment and tested. And then when it passed, you get it back and you can use it. That's one technique, one tool, and that's a facility that one of these tool suites, cybersecurity tool suites, will enable. There are all kinds of tool suites. As a person, it would be somebody who basically does the same thing manually, in a controlled environment, of course.
Okay. Let's see. Again, on certifications, we have Abhinav. Again, I'm sorry about if I mispronounced the name. He comes from a commerce background, so in trade and probably web commerce. What would be the highlights for that as far as certifications, or what direction would you go in for cybersecurity?
That depends a little bit on his interests, of course. In trade, as a sales guy, he maybe wants to know what is a good tool suite. That's very hard for me to say. There are many tool suites. Hornbill is one of them. Unicenter is another one. You got the next generation and the next dimension. The prices escalate very nicely. Yeah. Many tools.
A lot of different tools. So that'd be something probably have to send more of a private, more specific request. Another individual, network security engineer working on Checkpoint and Cisco firewalls. Which training and certifications will help to boost my career? Is it CISSP or CEH?
CISSP would be the good one for him, together with ethical hacking and CompTIA.
Okay, excellent. And then I have another one. CISA course, please elaborate. The CISA course.
I
believe this was asking a CISA. Is that, maybe I'm not reading it correctly.
Yeah, CISA. That's a systems auditor.
Okay.
I mean, you will be. The bad news is, then you will start looking like me, because you become you start looking like Mr. Murphy. In other words, you start sabotaging things. You do penetration testing. You do auditing of systems, auditing of procedures. So that would be applicable if you provide those services to your customer, or you work for an accountancy firm and you're hired to audit their security measures. If you are the continuity manager in a company, that's the stuff you would do.
Okay, excellent. Let's see. Going back to, we have time for about 2 or 3 more questions. Adam elaborated a little bit more on what he meant by the e-commerce. They have secure a handful of e-commerce and WordPress sites, and he has his IT professional that he wants to figure out what certifications to send them towards, or where to send those people for their training. What would you suggest as far as, again, e-commerce and then WordPress sites? I don't know if you know specifically a lot about WordPress.
Small or big company?
I'm guessing it's a smaller company. He said 5 people.
Sorry, what?
He said 5 people. It's a 5-person company.
Okay. Then I would say ethical hacking and cybersecurity general course.
Excellent. So those are good courses to take. We are coming up, let's see, one more question here on CISSP. Can you elaborate what the CISSP is?
Yes, then you are a certified security professional. And that is the full blast security training and certification on a very high level. It's very highly respected. You can compare that with a master certification in service management.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Excellent. I think that's all the time. We're actually running out of time here on the hour. Did you have anything else you want to add at the very end? I'm going to go ahead and close the polling here. Let me go back in there. Did you have anything else you want to add in there, Andrew, or any other slides you want to show?
No. Grandpa is tired.
I understand. We're going to go and close the session. If you do want a copy of the session, you can request that from our support desk under Simplilearn. Just put a note down which session it is, and usually they have them. They have them within 24 hours, a lot of times sooner, and then they'll send you a link for it. I'm going to go ahead and close the session. Thank everybody for attending. Happy learning, and thanks from Simplilearn.